Good evening, everyone. You're most welcome to this our Mid Sussex District Council meeting. I'd like to thank the Trinity Church once again for allowing us to host this meeting here tonight. The meeting is being live streamed and officers will be bringing a microphone to each speaker. Everyone should allow a moment for the microphone to get to them before speaking. I'm now going to read the evacuation information. The building is protected by a fire alarm system with sirens sounding and flashing lights in some rooms. On hearing the evacuation alarm, please leave the building by the nearest marked exit route. Fire exits are to my left and right and at the back of this room through the main entrance to the building. Please proceed to the assembly point situated within the car park and only take valuables immediately to hand. If anyone requires assistance, they will be helped by the officers present after other people have left. Please do not return to the building until told it is safe to do so by the senior fire brigade officer attending or church representative in the case of a false alarm. Smoking or any naked flame is not permitted in the building. Filming from the public seating area is permitted, but members must please refrain from filming so as not to distract the meeting. Mobile phones must please be switched to silent. Thank you. I'm now going to ask the Vice Chairman to read the opening prayer.
Good evening, everyone. O Lord, grant us courage to strive for what is right and good, courtesy to listen to those of different opinion, strengthen us through difficulties and pressures, and guide us in our deliberations so that we may act in the interest of all in our district. To the glory of your holy name. Amen.
Thank you, Vice Chairman. I'm going to move on to item 2, to receive questions from members of the public pursuant to Council Procedure Rule 9. I have one question from Mr. Cox. Mr. Cox, would you like to give us your question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is about the consultancy advice the Council have commissioned from BOP Consulting on the future of Clare Hall. According to the invitation to tender relating to the contract, the consultants will provide an interim report on May 27th, and the Council will then provide feedback to advise the remainder of the study. Can the Cabinet member responsible please clarify whether the interim report will be provided to the full Council or a subgroup of the Council, and if so, to what subgroup?
Thank you, Mr. Cox. I'm going to ask for a response from the leader, please.
Thank you very much, Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Cox, for your question. As you highlighted, the Council appointed BOP, a globally recognised cultural and creative consultancy, to advise on the Clare Hall site. And I'm delighted that an organisation with an impressive global reputation in the creative industries has agreed to work with the Council. I welcome them on board and hope they can now undertake their work with the space needed to help us develop evidence-based proposals for the future of community facilities on the Clare Hall site. To answer the question, I would direct you to the Cabinet report from February, which outlines the timescales for the work. The interim report is expected to be discussed at the Cabinet meeting in the summer, and that will be published as part of the regular governance process. The invitation to tender document that's been referred to has been published in the spirit of transparency, and it's important it isn't taken out of context. The work and timelines included are indicative only and will be driven by the work the consultants are still planning. The Council will continue to share as much information as possible, and I'd like to encourage residents to sign up to the Clare Hall Engagement Hub, where residents can get the latest information on the progress of the project. And that link is on the Council's website, Chairman, and indeed has been shared on the Council's social media channels as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Mr. Cox, would you like to ask a supplementary question?
Yes, please, Madam Chair. Past experience has shown that inadequate scrutiny of decisions on Clare Hall can lead to bad outcomes. The consultant's advice will be key to the settling the future of Clare Hall. And this is an issue which is of great importance to thousands of our residents. How can the public be assured that the consultant's work will be scrutinised by a representative cross-section of council members?
Thank you. Peter, would you like to make a written reply, or would you like to respond?
Thank you, Chairman. I'm happy to answer the question now. And the answer is that the Council has established a member steering group to guide the work and provide advice to the Cabinet. And so, of course, they will be looking at the interim report before it's published and goes to Cabinet, and that contains representation from Hayward Heath Town Council on behalf of the community, importantly. But in terms of the outcome, Chairman, I'm very clear, which is that we are working to deliver on the mandate given to this council by the 95% of residents who supported change and modernisation on the Clare Hall site. And it's really important that we deliver modern community facilities for Hayward Heath and the wider area, and that's what we're going to do, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Cox, would you like to either go to the public gallery or leave the meeting? Pleasure. I now move on to item 3 to confirm the minutes of the minutes of the meeting of council held on the 30th of March, which is on pages 5 to 14 of the agenda. Please note that a minor amendment has been made to the attendance list. Could I ask members if you verbally agree to the minutes?
Agreed.
Thank you. I'm now going to ask under item 4 to receive declarations of interest from members in respect of any matter on the agenda. Members, could they please raise their hands to indicate if they wish to declare an interest? I see no hands. Thank you. Item 5, to consider any items that I, as Chairman of the Council, agrees to take as urgent business. I have none. I'm now moving on to item 6, Chairman's announcements. You have before you, or you may be sitting on it, posters and templates. If you could assist with sharing these details with the community, that would be most appreciated. It's in respect of the Platinum Jubilee competition. As part of the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, we are asking young people up to the age of 16 to design a woodland seat which will be placed near to 250 new trees planted as part of the Queen's Green Canopy. Volunteers at Burgess Hill Shed will use the winning design to create a beautiful bench in remembrance of the occasion. So please do take the posters and details away with you and spread the word. Thank you. You now see the recent engagements on the agenda that I and the Vice Chair have attended. And in particular, I would like to mention the celebration event for the Clare Hall vaccination volunteers. They were really appreciated that we had taken the opportunity to express our thanks by giving them a really good celebration, and they enjoyed it very much, and everyone was very appreciative. Item 7, the main item agenda of the evening. I believe that we are the first council to undertake such a plan, and I know that the members who formed a cross-working party group together with the officers held numerous meetings and spent many hours developing this excellent document. This item is being proposed by Councillor Porfer. It's on pages 15 to 100 of your agenda. Councillor Porfer, would you like to introduce this item?
Madam Chair, yes, I'd be delighted to, as Chairman of that committee and working group. On a personal basis, and I think I can speak of everybody who was on that committee, it was both informative and educational, and it showed the way that this council is moving forward into the next 5 years and to what we're looking to do. It was good cross-party involvement. Everybody got involved and had their two pence to say, and it was all agreed at the end by everybody that the document should go forward. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. This motion is being seconded by Councillor Ash Edwards. Would you like to speak now or retain your right to speak later?
I'll reserve my right to speak later, Chairman.
No problem. Okay, I'm now going to request that members, any questions or comments they have on the report before you. Councillor Hillier.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd just like to make a few comments, if I may, as it sits in my portfolio. And I also would like to start off by thanking the members of the cross-party working group for their dedication to this work. And I think every member made useful contributions. And I'd also like to credit Councillor Pulver for an excellent job of chairing the meetings, ensuring that all had a say and that we were nearly always able to reach agreement where starting positions may have been at variance. This document will replace the two previous strategies that were to run till 2022 and recognises that Mid Sussex District Council has a key role as an employer, landowner, provider and procurer of services, strategic leader, place shaper and a key partner to enable others to deliver for themselves. We are only a small district council, albeit with huge ambitions, but we must bear in mind our relatively limited levers. Nonetheless, hopefully residents seeing this will realise our ambition and that we are using our levers as well as we reasonably can. Partnership working, as ever, is highly important, and we are very much working in step with national government and with West Sussex County Council. I should record at this juncture that I am a West Sussex County Councillor. I also think that we as councillors can have a very useful role in flagging up best practices and innovations elsewhere that we hear about through our extensive networks. For example, only earlier today I attended the virtual Rural Network seminar on rural decarbonisation and heard about some very interesting work being done by the South Lakeland District Council and the Cumbria Action for Sustainability that I was able to flag up to our officers. And I'm happy to say that they were already aware of this work, but it has prompted us to look at improving the visibility of tools such as the carbon footprint calculator on our website. And this reflects an area I feel is very important in this document, and that is improving the, sorry, I've lost my pace trying to, supporting our business, in the community, in their desire to achieve carbon zero. And this has been expressed widely in my meetings with businesses and the business associations. We're also very much in step with our national government, who I think have grasped the agenda, perhaps late, but certainly admirably, and in many areas are now already leading the way. For example, a 2020 study found that we had more rapid chargers for every 100 miles of key strategic roads than any other country in Europe. And current plans are seeing this hugely accelerated, not least locally by the current rollout of fast chargers, starting with our own car parks. We've also seen in very years that it is realistic and actually happening for our national economy to be growing whilst our nation reduces its environmental impact. The two dynamics are not mutually exclusive, as some would have us believe. For this document, it should be remembered, is as much about supporting our local economy to grow, to provide jobs across the earnings spectrum, and to reduce the environmental and life quality impact of outward commuting. I believe it sends a clear signal to businesses considering Mid Sussex as a location that not only do we have a wonderful place to work and live for their workforces, not only are we on the cusp of having the best digital connectivity outside the country's major conurbations, not only are we connected to our national infrastructure and key economic communities such as London and Brighton, but also that we are very much climate aware and have this strategy and its action plans to give them confidence that Mid Sussex is also an environmentally responsible place to do business. I appreciate, finally, that for some there may be areas that we feel this doesn't go far or fast enough. But I hope that they recognise there is so much good in this document in relation to our ambitions for our economy, our environment, but also social fabric and the quality of life for all of our residents, that this strategy will receive support from all. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Hillier. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chairman. I have three questions on Objective 13, Reduction in Carbon Emissions, agenda pages 51 and 52. The Sustainable Economic Strategy is committed to upgrade 20% of dwellings with energy performance certificates F and G by 2025 using Green Homes Grant local authority delivery funding. 20% amounts to just 290 dwellings over 3 years. Many of these residents are in private rental and are most likely to be in fuel poverty. This is a policy that could achieve both sustainability and make equality improvements to the lives of these residents. So my first question is, why is this target so unambitious? Many homeowners are wasting massive amounts of energy due to poor heating controls and little or no fabric insulation. Providing help and advice to residents in the able to pay category and identifying those not able to pay and provide assistance to them to improve their homes. These could be residents in Energy Performance Certificate E or worse categories. Is completely missing. In the present and future high energy cost environment, this assistance will be rapidly taken up, creating green jobs, producing energy performance certificates and improvement recommendations, and noting that 66% of Mid Sussex dwellings are without energy performance certificates. So my second question is, why is there no take-up of government transition to sustainable warmth and homes upgrade grant schemes identified at this stage? Thirdly, it's good to see recognition of the work of the third sector voluntary organisations. Community groups such as Fairer World Lindfield have been operating without tangible support from this council for the last 3 years. So my third question, how and when will this council engage with and support voluntary organisations such as them as a result of this strategy? And finally, I refer to agenda page 18, paragraph 21, next steps. We're left waiting for the Ricardo analysis to create a Mid-Sussex net zero carbon programme during 2022-2025. What are the next steps in this fast-moving work stream? The sustainable economic strategy has lots of warm words, but in reality, action on climate change in Mid-Sussex is being kicked down the road yet again. So my final question is, when will the Mid-Sussex Net Zero Carbon Programme be provided for scrutiny and implementation? Thank you.
Councillor Brown. Councillor Ash-Edwards, would you prefer to provide a written reply?
Chairman, if I may, I'll pick it up in my closing, if that's acceptable.
Thank you. I'm going to move on to Councillor Henwood, please.
Thank you very much. I noticed there's a new statistic in the district profile summary. 12% of Year 6 children are obese. Well, we know that the children don't make themselves obese. It is the adults who are responsible. So I yet again am putting forward why a statistic showing that 60% of the population of Mid Sussex District Council are overweight or obese. Would it not be better to have this particular statistic in your district profile summary? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ash-Edwards, will you pick that up? Thank you. Councillor Trumbull, please. Sorry, I just want to make it slightly.
Thank you. I was on this working group with Councillor Henwood and others. Now, it has been said, in fact, the criticism has been made, that this working group was officer-led and consultant-led. I would suggest, Chairman, that actually shows a misunderstanding of how working groups actually work. What happens, or what happens in working groups? Over my years, I've served on a number of working groups. What happens is detail is given to the working group by officers. And it's then for the working group to synthesize that and put that together and create a finished product. And if we look at this working group, There was a mass of detail presented to us by the officers, and a mass of working guidelines, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, for instance. There was a mass of analysis, quality analysis, presented to us by Ricardo. The working group, it was the working group that shaped, directed, and put the content into the strategy. It was the working group that did that as a result of its deliberations. And I would emphasize the deliberations of a cross-party working group. And I know this because I was there all the time. Now, there was a lot of discussion, a lot of disagreement. But at the end, there was general consensus. And this man, Mike Pulfer, ensured that we did achieve that. In fact, I would suggest that Mike Pulfer was at pains to ensure there was consensus and general agreement within the working group. And Mike should be commended for that, as Councillor Hillier said earlier on. It's an ambitious document. It is an ambitious document. It has a 3-year time span. And we hear things that it doesn't include this, it doesn't include that. What this document is about, it's a direction of travel. It's taking us to a goal, towards a goal. We ain't going to achieve it in 3 years' time. It's taking us towards a goal, a direction of travel. I think that's important for us to remember. And if I have anything to say about this strategy, it's that I think some of the ambitions within it are a bit ambitious. We should remember that a Shire District Council, thankfully, has limited ability to command what happens in its district community. So some of the things within that strategy document may be a bit ambitious, but no doubt over the forthcoming years, the scrutiny process, which is robust, Councillor Brown, which is robust, will show those points up. So this outlines for us a direction of travel. It's a comprehensive document. Even though I have some misgivings about part of it, I support it, and I would urge other members to do so as well. Thank you, Chairman.
Sir Trumbull. Councillor Bennett. You won't? Right. I've received false information. Right, Councillor Eggleston. No?
No. Sorry, pardon. Councillor
You need better glasses, Councillor. So sorry. Right. Councillor Eaves.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair. I was part of the Sustainable Economic Strategy Group as well, and I'd like to thank Councillor Pulfer for chairing so well, and the officers for putting in a tremendous amount of work into this project, which, as they acknowledge, already needs updating and is an iterative process. As I said at the time, I very much regret the fact that the vision does not include the words net zero, and it does include the words economic growth, and there was not a consensus on that, in that I don't agree with that. But I'm glad to hear that the Cabinet member for net zero and economic growth has said that he doesn't feel the two concepts are mutually exclusive. This council, I feel, is way behind many others on sustainability work. It's one of the few councils that has never declared a climate emergency, and it shows no sign of recognising now that we are in one. But I welcome many of the things in this strategy, including the commitment to training both elected members and staff, in carbon literacy, which is something we have been asking for years. Coming on to transport, the biggest source of district-wide carbon emissions is transport, as the document tells us. And to deliver a reduction in transport carbon emissions, we must get people out of their cars and onto other modes of transport. There's nothing in this document about buses, except for a passing reference to rural bus networks. There's nothing about electric bikes and the revolutionary role they could play in modal shift. And on the 90th anniversary of the mass trespass on Kinderscout, there's nothing about this longed-for bridleway and cycle route between Haywards Heath and Burgess Hill, which we've been asking for and waiting for years, and which is being obstructed by a private landowner. I can't agree with Councillor Trumbull that things are too ambitious. I think the aspirations for modal shift are far too modest. References on another subject. I welcome the fact that the Council is trying to reduce its own carbon footprint, but am dismayed at the unfounded rejection of workplace parking levies, which I have raised several times, and which I feel could be a source of revenue, which could then be spent on active travel and public transport. References to ensuring our town centres continue to be attractive and vibrant will ring rather hollow to the residents of Burgess Hill. We haven't been attractive and vibrant for years. No heckling, please. In summary, there are many pious wishes in the strategy and a lot of lip service, and the proof of the pudding will be in the eating. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Anthea Lee.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to give my support and welcome this report. Many residents of my ward are very motivated and active with various environmental and sustainable initiatives. Thus, the approach that this economic strategy is taking, I expect to be widely welcomed. The emphasis on active travel I really welcome, as there's much support locally for cycle routes to be enabled, and where possible, that would lead to easing of congestion. So I'd just like to give my support and welcome this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lee. Councillor Dempsey.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to highlight a small addition that was made at the Scrutiny Committee under Objective 8 around adding some detail to the need to make a clear plan for nature recovery, including a commitment to do an initial desk-based natural capital mapping exercise. And I just wanted to highlight it because it reflects some work that was done cross-party, and I'd like to thank Councillor Belty, Councillor Pulfer, Councillor Lee and Bennett and Ash Edwards, all of whom kind of involved in adding it. And it's a fairly small addition, but I think what it does is flesh out this important area of work, and it just slightly raises the level of detail and level of ambition. And I know that members will know that this council is going to be involved in the next few years in implementing the conditions of the new Environment Act, including working with West Sussex County Council and others on delivering local nature recovery strategy and so on. And I think that what this shows is hopefully we will be able to be not just compliant with the terms of that act and doing the bare minimum, but working together, really pushing the level of ambition and being best in class, or at least as ambitious as we possibly can. And I know there's a lot of cross-party agreement on this issue. This was a very positive thing to add in, and I just wanted to say thank you for that. So that's all I had to say.
Thank you, Councillor Dempsey. Councillor Andrew Lee.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'd just like to take this opportunity to address a matter of interest to me, which is that of being carbon neutral. Oh, I should have waited for the microphone. Never mind. Some people, myself included, may be concerned that aiming for carbon neutral puts the nations that do so, like Britain, at a competitive disadvantage to those that do not, especially in the medium term. However, I believe that most measures needed to achieve net zero are also, in themselves, stimulating to the economy, but perhaps more importantly, will place this nation and our district in a good competitive position as fossil fuels become ever more expensive and indeed vulnerable to global events. I therefore welcome this plan's integrated approach. It is good for our economy, it is good for our environment, and it is good for our residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lee. Councillor Gibson.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Unfortunately, in the name of political balance, the independent group were not allowed a full seat on the working group. But I'd like to thank Councillor Pulfer for letting me attend as an observer and to speak regularly at the meetings. So I think that was very commendable indeed. I agree with Councillor Trumbull that this is an ambitious document. I think there's plenty of framework within it to drive forward all the things that we want to do. And I agree with the Cabinet member that economic growth and the quest for net zero are not mutually exclusive. I have one or two minor issues with facts and figures within the current draft that I will write to the officers about. But I would like to make the point that I think that the overall formatting of the document is rather perverse. This mixture of double width columns and single width columns as the text flows through it, I did not find it particularly conducive to easy reading, and I would recommend that somebody just takes a look at that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Gibson. Councillor Ruth Demir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I won't attempt to comment on the environmental and sustainable context, although I welcome them all because I think there are far better experts in this room. I just wanted to say I was so pleased to see what else we are doing on the economy, which, as everyone's agreed, they're not mutually exclusive, and especially that we're looking to help support businesses secure funding to deliver pilot initiatives such as incubator space and grow on hubs. This is what we need, certainly around my ward in Bridge Road. There are now 2, and they've been hugely successful. These are the kind of places and spaces we need for the small firms to start up, which can grow into the large, highly skilled workforce that we are intending to produce, and they will then have jobs which will stop this out commuting and make us more of a community. So I welcome it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Demir. Councillor Cornish.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'd also like to add my thanks to Councillor Pulfer, the officers and the cross-party working group for the huge amount of work on this. And I was particularly pleased to see how our plans have been linked to the SDGs. However, I just wanted to raise the issue about procurement, because in this final document, I would really have liked to have seen greater responsibility or indeed KPIs on the council suppliers or contractors to be vetted on their commitment to reduce their carbon emissions. After all, we're facing a climate emergency with only one reference to this phrase throughout the document and without mention in the glossary. Precise targets on carbon reduction should run throughout and have a greater presence across everything we and our stakeholders do, specifically in relation to Objective 6 to achieve net zero and UN SDG Goal 13 on climate action in the first annex. In fact, the government's own carbon reduction plan, which is PPN 0621, sets out a template for procurement on contracts over £5 million and asks meaningful, transparent questions about their suppliers' credibility when it comes to commitment on reducing carbon. So my question is, please can we see similar carbon reduction measures for all the council stakeholders in our procurement added to our own SES plan? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Laband.
Sorry, I beg your pardon. I'm very impressed with this document. It's a very simple strategy that outlines a clear roadmap to deliver a very ambitious policy. And I thoroughly support it. I won't go into any more detail there. I just have one very small question. Reading through the clear document on page 11/29, which is the district profile summary, there's a housing, or shall we say, a resident increase projected of 7,600 residents between now and 2031. But at the same time, our current housing numbers project that we will build a minimum of 9,500 units. So there's a clear discrepancy from that there, and I think it's possibly something that may need attention updating, but it's not, no more than that. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Councillor Band. Councillor de Bell. Glad to see you're back in good health.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. What I particularly like about this plan is, apart from the whole thing, is that it leaves us room for the plan to evolve and develop. Because if the war in Ukraine's taught us anything, it's taught us that things can turn on a sixpence. And it's no point in being completely dogmatic in one particular area. It must do this, it must do that. The most important thing is that it can evolve, develop, and succeed. And I pray that it will. It has my full support. Thank you very much indeed.
Councillor de Bell. Now, have I missed anybody who wishes to speak? Councillor Ellis.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I'd like to thank the committee, the chairman, the officers. I think it's a wonderful report. It's also the fact that we spent years and many hours building neighbourhood plans and parish plans, and we now have a document that can support our local priorities. I think it's a document we can refer back to, and I think the work that went into it was outstanding, and I thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Whittaker.
Thank you. Firstly, I'd like to thank Alison, who's been running around and he's covering her steps for the whole month, I think, this evening. So thank you for that. Thank you, Chairman. I thank the working group, which I was on, and there were at least 8 or 10 meetings, each of a minimum 2 hours duration during the day. So it was a lengthy process. There was excellent collaboration, and we've seen that tonight by all the comments, cross-party, cross-floor, unanimous agreement on the principle of collaboration and working. And I think that's the way to go for this council, given the previous history of the last maybe year or 2 years, and there's been a distinct improvement on that. So particularly with other future subjects coming up like district plan review and other thorny subjects, that level of collaboration I would like to see going forward. I'd like to thank the officers and the consultants, Ricciardo consultants. Generally, I find this subject fairly dry and hard going. So at some stages during the meetings, I did find it hard, but I learnt a lot from my cross-party colleagues, in particular Councillor Eaves and Councillor Brown and Councillor Henwood, on a subject that is very wide. But I think it's interesting to note page 11 of the document, which is this district profile, which is probably one of the easier to read elements of the report. And it's got some very interesting statistics on it. Now, one that I highlighted, which has already been flagged by Councillor Henwood, is the 12% of Year 6 children that are obese. Now, that came out and really hit me very hard very early on. So I think that's quite a shocking statistic. Probably that statistic is likely to go up in the short term, but I'm very glad that on that particular subject, that this district council are investing so much in our sports facilities across the district, with Burgess Hill new sports facility, but also more in terms of upgrading our existing sports pitches and pavilions and working with our 3 towns sports councils. All of our 3 towns have excellent sports councils that work with schools and sports clubs and link in, and I think that's crucial going forward to reducing this 12% statistic. And I know that Councillor John Belsey is in here, his portfolio is working on it, and I look forward to hearing further news about that and further investment. But overall, thank you to everybody involved, and I support this document. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Whittaker. If I have no one else wishes to speak, I'm going to pass to the leader as seconder of this motion.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Quite a lot of issues to respond to there, which I'll do my best to do justice to. And Chairman, perhaps I can open by thanking the members of the working group, a number of whom have spoken this evening, for the work that they've done over a number of months to ensure that some complex topics are properly considered and we have a comprehensive and evidence-based piece of work in front of us this evening. And particular thanks go as others have said, to Councillor Pulford for chairing it and doing so in a inclusive manner, which I think people have welcomed. Before I make my comments, Chairman, I'll just try and respond to some of the questions and points that have been raised in the debate. So Councillor Brown raised a number of points. Firstly, on home insulation. So there is a target in the strategy around reducing emissions from the worst performing 20% of homes, so the ones that create the greatest carbon emissions. But that's got to be in line with some of the national initiatives. I think Councillor Brown referred to the Green Homes Grant and similar things, because we have limited powers in those sorts of areas. If someone doesn't want to improve their home, then councils don't have a legal power to make them. And so it's got to be working with wider initiatives and incentives to try and support that process. And this council does promote and support those kinds of energy saving schemes when they are available. And I think that's particularly important given that we're not a council that owns a housing stock. If we were a housing stock owning authority, then as a council you can go in and make those kinds of home changes in a way that non-stock owning authorities can't. I would just make the point though that the data shows this in the report, that Mid Sussex has the lowest levels of fuel poverty in the county. Doesn't mean we should be complacent at all. There's still more to do, and particularly in the current environment with very high fuel costs, I recognise the real challenge that will present to many residents, but we must recognise that we're not starting from the worst place in the county, for example. In terms of engagements with local groups, I think Councillor Lee referred to, Councillor Mrs Lee referred to some of that. The council does engage with local groups whenever possible, and we will continue to do so. I completely disagree with Councillor Brown's comments that the work on carbon net zero is being kicked down the road. There's a very clear commitment in the strategy and the action plan to develop the carbon net zero action plan in the current year, 2022-23, and again, an evidence-based piece of work with support from Ricardo, who have international expertise on carbon and net zero work that I think in making this commitment this evening to that net zero target and goal, I think puts us in one of the strongest positions of councils nationally, not the opposite that opposition members have referred to. Councillor Henwood and Councillor Whitaker referred to the data around obesity levels, and I think it's important to provide some context in the data that's in the profile. The purpose of the profile is to give context to the kind of challenges and successes across a broad range of indicators in the district. Through the Mid Sussex Partnership, we look at similar data very regularly, and indeed it forms part of the evidence base for the economic profile, for the district profile rather, that feeds into this kind of strategy. Because of course, if you're wanting to have a strategy around how you support the economy and you support the well-being of our communities, you clearly need to understand what the starting point is, and that's the purpose of the profile. Many of the issues within the profile are things that don't fall within the responsibility of just this council or any particular agency or body. Inevitably, they're things that require collaboration and work, and indeed on the issue, the kind of year 6 issue, there will be a lot of work going on within schools and indeed through the County Council's public health work to support a positive direction of travel. And indeed, Councillor Whitaker was quite right to reference the work that this council is doing to invest in sports and leisure to ensure those opportunities are available to young people in our district. And again, no underwriting of the challenge, but I would just note again that the data in Mid Sussex is better than, in this case, the national comparison. So again, I think it's important we keep some of those issues in context. Councillor Dempsey referred to the amendment at scrutiny, and I think that was an important strengthening of some work that was already here to recognise some of the additional work we can do around natural capital. Pleased that we were able to find a way forward with that, and I thank Councillor Dempsey, Chairman, for the constructive way in which he went about that amendment to ensure that it could be agreed at scrutiny. So I thank him for that. Councillor Eaves made a number of points around what is or isn't in the strategy. I'm afraid, Chairman, I just don't agree that the vision and the strategy relating to the economy shouldn't include economic growth. Councillor Leband actually referred to the fact that our population will grow over the coming years, and so if you do not grow your economy, that means when you have a growing population, everyone gets poorer in relative terms. And I think for a council to say that our goal is for people to be poorer in relative terms would be quite outrageous, actually. And so we've got to grow our economy. And the truth is that what we've seen over recent years, both nationally and in Mid Sussex, is that you can secure economic growth and reduce carbon emissions at the same time. That is the fact of what has happened in Mid Sussex in recent years, as well as nationally. And so, as many members have said, they are not mutually exclusive things, and our goal should be to ensure we have economic growth in a sustainable way, whilst also working towards net zero. And indeed, as Councillor Andrew Lee said, actually working towards net zero is positive for the economy as well, because actually what's going to help achieve net zero is new technology, green technology, and that's going to require the economy to produce those innovations and indeed the private sector to play a really important part in that innovation as well. Councillor Eaves raised another issue which I'm afraid I disagree with. Apologies, Councillor Eaves, in relation to workplace parking levies. So to be really clear about what workplace parking levies are, they are a tax on any employer who provides a parking space for their employees. They've been introduced in places like Nottingham at around £400 per parking space per year. And I just don't agree that that is an appropriate way of supporting the environment in a district like ours, where people are inevitably going to have to use a car for at least part of their travel. And to say to a school that provides parking spaces for their teachers, or to a hospital that provides parking spaces to their nurses, or to a small business that provides parking spaces to their employees, you're going to have to pay a £400 a year tax for providing that parking space. I think that is entirely the wrong approach to take. Councillor Trumbull and Councillor Gibson, I thought, had some agreement around ambition and the point that's been made around growth and net zero not being mutually exclusive, and welcome those comments and welcome the comments from Councillor Ellis and Councillor DeBell as well, and absolutely right around the adaptability of the strategy. We've seen over the last few years the need for a very agile approach in relation to how we support our local economy, and I dare say in different ways that will continue going forward. Councillor Cornish raised a question, I think a very good question, around procurement, and I think the answer to that is it's something that will need to be part of the net zero action plan, because clearly how we buy things and services, and councils spend a lot of money in local communities, clearly has an impact, and some of that in terms of the council's major contracts won't be an overnight piece of work, but clearly as big contracts in particular come up, then ensuring that the goals of this strategy are absolutely written through those contracts and those pieces of work, I think will be really important, and there will certainly be some opportunities to do that. So I think it's a really good point that I think will be picked up through that action plan. And I think the final question to pick up, Chairman, was Councillor Leband's around the projected increase in residents and how that relates to housing numbers. And the answer is that unfortunately it's not a direct comparison, because the kind of things that go into the housing number calculation is more than just the projection of population. And so the standard methodology that the government uses also contains some measures of housing affordability, as well as a simple population projection. And of course population projections change every year, and different sets of figures get used in different pieces of work is the honest answer there. And of course councils have to look at issues around unmet need and so on. So that's why there isn't always a direct correlation. And of course home ownership, household formation rather, takes place in different forms in terms of numbers of people living in a new house. It won't be always a one-for-one position, but I understand the point that's made there. So, Chairman, hopefully I've covered all the points. And I just really, in summarising, Chairman, I really welcome the work that's been done by the working group, and I'd like to thank so the members involved, the officers and the advisors that the Council has had. It's really important that we bring together our work on the economy and environmental protection, sustainability and climate change. It's the first time we've brought those strands of work together, but really important given their inevitable and intrinsic relationship. The UK government has committed to becoming carbon net zero, and we must do so as well as a council, Chairman, and this strategy sets us on the path to that net zero ambition and goal. Climate change is a big challenge for everyone, and every council around the country has an important role to play, and Mid Sussex is no different. And to tackle that challenge, we need a new approach, driving economic growth and ensuring that we use investment to support our environmental goals rather than detracting from them. This strategy is a broad approach, recognising that people, our local environment and partnership working all have a role to play. And as I said, we need to take practical steps to achieving that rather than a kind of flag waving that sometimes happens in these kinds of debates. Chairman, our goal through this strategy is encouraging investment, ensuring that our residents have access to good jobs, high skills, high pay, that we tackle disadvantage wherever possible, and we reach that net zero target. And I ask Council Chairman to endorse this strategy. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Excellent report, and I think he addressed the questions that members had put to him. So on that basis, I'm now going to proceed to vote on the main motion before us. I'm going to state the recommendations are being voted on for the benefit of members, viewers and listeners. The full recommendations are on page 15. That the Council, 1, approves the draft Sustainable Economy Strategy and Action Plan for the period 2022 to 2025 and the district profile. 2, notes the next steps regarding the delivery of the Sustainable Economy Strategy Action Plan. And 3, delegates approval for any minor updates, including updates to evidence-based data points or third-party strategy names, to officers in consultation with a Cabinet Member of Economic Growth and Net Zero. The vote will be taken by show of hands. Please, members who wish to raise their hand in agreement. May I have a show of hands in objection? Can I have a show of hands in abstention?
4. So the vote was 39 in favour, none against and 4 abstentions.
Thank you. 5, they said. 5 abstentions.
Apologies.
Would you just like to raise your hands again, those that wish to abstain?
5.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and thank the members of the working group again for all that work and for the officers. I'm now going to close the meeting, stating the time, which is 7:55, and reminding members to remain in place until the live stream has ended, please. Thank you all for your attendance here this evening.